Hello and welcome back. I am very, very pleased that you can join me in my studio tonight because we will be doing a fun art experiment where I am going to be making my own luminous watercolor paints out of these Pearl X powdered pigments by Jacquard products. Now, this video is not being sponsored. I wish it was. It's just something that I thought it would be fun and I wanted to try it. What makes these particular pigment powders unique is each individual pigment contains finely ground mica particles that give each pigment its own unique luminance or reflectivity to light or a metallic sheen. Some are really, really shiny, some are more subtle, but each powder has its own look and its own effect, and they're quite beautiful and very unique. And I'm looking forward to seeing how these particular pigments come out as watercolor paints. This one is super russet. This one I haven't used a lot of. You can tell it still has a protective seal on it. Oh, that is a gorgeous color. That is a really rich sparkly copper. I got these as a set, and I haven't really, I've used them a lot, but I've barely made a dent in them. I use them for mixing in with my acrylic nail powders to make different acrylic nails. I've mixed them into resin and made some nice little resin pieces with this luminescent colors throughout. I've used them with polymer clay. So to make watercolor paint, basically you only need a pigment, which is the dry powdered item here that supplies the color. And then you need a binder that will stick the pigment down onto your watercolor paper. And that's what the gum arabic is for. You can get it as a powder or you can get it in liquid form, which is what I have here. Then I'm going to dry with a pipette. Okay. I don't really use exact measurements because these pigments, they all feel a little bit different. They have different densities. And so what I go for is more of a texture, a feeling. It lets me know when I've added enough pigment. And at this point, I've got most of the dry powder submerged, but the liquid still feels a little too loose. So I'm going to add a little bit more dry pigment. I think so what I'm looking for is like something that would be the consistency of like a thick pancake batter. I know it when I feel it. So that's the only way I know how to describe it. And I will give that amount a chance to settle in. It's surprising how much pigment you have to add to get that little bit of gum arabic thick enough to make a good paint. I'll try this super russet. This beautiful rose, pink, magenta, coppery color. I'm gonna spread out like it's a little tiny sandbox. This one mixed up perfectly. I almost got the ratio right the first time. This bright yellow. This is a gorgeous color that I'm just going to spill all over the place. It's almost like a sulfur or a mustard. This is like that color yellow that you get in the 8 crayon box of Crayola crayons. The one yellow you get is the really bright one, like school bus yellow. I went on to the product website for Jacquard products. They are the makers of these Pearl X pigments. And I looked up the pigments that were used in this one right here in Spring Green. And this pigment is made of chromium oxide and titanium oxide and mica. And so it's the chromium oxide that gives you a deep dark green color. Titanium oxide makes it, if that's a white pigment, lightens up the green. And then the mica is what gives it the sparkliness. Let's knock these bubbles out. I'm sure there's better, more technically proficient ways to mix watercolor paint this way. Like if I wanted to make sure this was really properly, mixed really well, I would use a glass palette and use the appropriate Muller. But I only want to make a really tiny amount. I'm not going for commercial production here. I just want to make enough that I could use them in a few paintings, and then I would be better able to decide which colors I use the most, which ones I like the most, which ones handle a certain way, which pigments behave transparently, which ones are opaque, which ones granulate more than others. So I'm going to set these pans out to dry overnight, and that'll be the real test to see if, once they dry, if they can be reawakened like a regular watercolor pan could be, and be able to paint out in a way that's useful. enough space where I can add more pans if I make a mixture of these pigments or anything else. And I'll label space for the pigment name. And then my little swatch of black to do the contrast. Just a smooth wash of black with the Copic marker. I'm making the black swatch with the Copic marker because it's an alcohol marker. And alcohol markers won't dissolve in water. My pigment name. And this one is for antique copper. I'm going to have to write smaller. Copper. There we go. And there they all are. These cards for my paint sample swatches. The watercolor paper that I used to make these swatch cards is Canson XL watercolor paper. This is good paper for practicing on, for testing colors, for testing pigments, and for making swatches. And the pages here are bound on the end with glue so they tear off really easy. So these are the pans of watercolor after they've been left to dry. It's still a little bit squishy, but that's fine because I only let it dry about 24 hours and I wouldn't want it to be completely flaky brick hard after just 24 hours. So with this particular pan of super copper came out right. I'm gonna pre-wet the swatch card. So the super copper has a chance to flow. And then I'm just using the tip of the brush to activate the pan and get the color loosened up enough. That metallic sheen really shows up especially well against the black. I'm going to put it on really thick up here to see how well I can get it to cover. Then we'll just let it wash and fade out here at the bottom. have a better idea of how that will turn out once it's dry. As you can see here on this pan of turquoise, I didn't quite get the gum arabic to water ratio right, and so I ended up with some powdery residue floating on the top of this pigment, but that's fairly easy to fix. I have a little gum arabic and water over here off to the side, and I'm just going to use a little bit of that. I'm basically just knocking whatever loose pigment is hanging around on top. I'm trying to knock it into the liquid. Get that mixed up. If I let this soak and wait longer, this will turn out better. Because I don't think it's... Oh no, it's still... It's not too bad. On the white part of the card, it's a really nice cerulean color with some granulation. And then over on the black part of the card, the blue iridescence really comes forward. So it's almost like looking at two different types of blues. Now here's a pan that's set up really nicely. Leveled off on its own and was very smooth. It dried without cracking. This one's almost like fluorescent. The paper. Okay, like that. I have to turn the paper sideways because I'm left-handed, and it's just easier for me to do it this way. I like the movement in this one, how the granulation just kind of settles into the grain of the paper. This one you can move around. So you can put some texture in this particular color. Make it thicker or thinner. nicely. Let's see what they do on the paper though. This is bright yellow. It's a very pale buttercup when it's on the paper. Let's get some more of that metallic yellow over that black. And give that some time to dry. Oh, that one was gorgeous. I'm just going to keep you in suspense. There we go. These are those pigments that had gold in their name. So let's see how different they are. This one doesn't have quite the coverage of the solar gold. It's a little darker. That one just leapt across the paper. Sparkle gold. definitely needs to be stirred because it looks like it has pigments in there that separate. That should be enough. There we go. Here are the 3 duo colors. Duo red blue, oh wow, this one definitely has a distinct 2-color difference. And that also takes a lovely shift from green to purple. This one is very gorgeous. It's like it lights up on the black background. It's like it reveals its true beauty. On the white part of the paper, it's like a mother of pearl. And then, jade. This one started gold and stayed gold. Just a little bit brighter gold. just disappears over the light background. And let those dry. Can't really assess them fairly when they're still wet. There's the russet part. Wait. When does it turn blue? This one goes on beautifully. So buttery and smooth. Then this red russet. Now that our swatch cards are dry, let's see how they turned out. So, looking at these, I don't see them having the same covering power as a regular watercolor paint. But that's really not what these paints would be for. These would probably work best as enhancement paints with other watercolor paints. Like if I use them in conjunction with my regular paints to add just a touch of luminescence or sheen here or there. And some of these look really interesting, like this misty lavender that on its own, on the white part of the page, it has a nice granulation. You've got some like darker magenta spots and some more lighter cobalt violet spots. Then it's a nice sheen there on the dark background. The bright yellow, this has a nice, it did a nice wash of color, a very, very nice translucent wash. And of course, there it is on the black. Nice little sheen there. I just love how the metallic spring green is just so pretty. I think this is one of my favorite iridescent colors. I'm going to find a way to use this in a picture. I'll figure something out. I definitely want to use this. Here are the pearlescents and the macro pearls and micro pearls. Now, of course, here's the true test, is will it come off if you rub it? Here's a white paper towel. And very little bit, there's a teensy tiny amount that came up. But, I mean, just slightly more than what would come up on a regular watercolor pigment. And if I played around with the amount of gum arabic I put in there, I might be able to tweak it so that it doesn't come up at all. But I'm satisfied with this, quite happy with how that works as a paint that will stick to paper. The differences between these two blues. One's more cooler blue, one's more warm. Little difference in sheen. Here's the Duo Violet Brass. That's a pretty marked difference in how it looks on a darker background. And here's the Duo Green Purple. Here's another Duo Red Blue. Here are those interference colors. Interference red. Almost nothing shows up over the white background, but then you see the pop of red on this side. Here's gold. Interference blue. This violet really stands out. It's like almost invisible, and then pow. There it is. Interference green. And here are the russets, the red, the super, and the blue. The difference between the antique silver and the regular silver right here. And then the antique bronze and the super bronze. Antique copper versus super copper. And then the different golds, everything that has a gold name in it. And there's no actual, any kind of a metal that will tarnish in these pigments. So these colors are going to stay shiny. They won't tarnish. And I don't think they fade either. I'm trying to remember what I read on the Jacquard website. This brilliant gold versus solar. And there's sunset. Sparkle, hand. Antique. There you go. Any shade of gold you want. If you liked this video, hit the like button, and if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can receive notice of whenever I post new videos. If you want to try your own art experiments with these Pearl X powdered pigments, I put a link in the description below to where you can get some of your own, as well as links to the other products and items that I used in this video to make my watercolor paint. And if you do make something cool out of these pigments, put a photo of it on my Facebook page, my Facebook SoulRepose ASMR page, and let's show everybody what you did. I bet it'll be really cool. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Ciao for now.